That stamp would go on to become the only surviving copy of the British Guyana once today it is worth over $9 million to the 16 million stamp collectors. If stamps are one of the oldest fixations for collectors, coins may be the oldest. Evidence of coin collecting dates as far back as ancient Rome. One of the most infamous events in Roman history was the assassination of Julius Caesar. 2 years after usurping the throne, Brutus had several coins minted to commemorate himself literally getting away with murder. In 2020, 2,062 years after its creation, Brutus's gold coin sold for over $4 million. The most expensive coin ever sold happens to be another gold coin, the last gold coin ever minted by the U.S. Treasury. In 1934, President Roosevelt issued an executive order outlawing gold coins from general circulation. The Treasury was ordered to destroy all 450,000 newly minted 1933 double eagles. However, a few dozen were legally rescued and distributed to collectors. Over the next several years, the federal government located, confiscated, and destroyed almost all of the remaining copies. Only one double eagle, acquired by King Farouk of Egypt, managed to evade apprehension. Today, that lone coin survives as the only 1933 double eagle in private possession. In June of this year, the coin was sold for nearly $19 million, more than 900,000 times its nominal value.
See anything you like?
Yeah, I'll give you $1.50 for this umbrella.
$1.50 for that? But it's an antique.
If you keep something in good condition for long enough, it will eventually be worth a fortune. Antiques provide a treasure trove of rarities and have accounted for some of the most expensive collectibles ever sold. Action Comics #1 marked the beginning of the superhero genre in pop culture. After selling for just 10 cents a piece in 1938, a mint-condition copy of the original Superman is now worth more than $3 million. In the 17th Vulture, after selling for just 10 cents a piece in 1938, a mint-condition copy of the original Superman is now worth $3 million.
No.
In the 17th and 18th century, the Stradivari family built string instruments which became world-renowned for their unmatched sound quality. In 2008, a Stradivarius cello sold for $20 million, becoming the most expensive musical instrument in the world. Leonardo da Vinci was the most recognizable figure of the 15th century, and he would end up writing what would eventually become the most expensive book in the world. In 1994, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates purchased Leonardo's Codex Leicester for more than $30 million. Unofficially, the most expensive antique ever sold was this 18th century Qing Dynasty vase, selling at auction for over $80 million. It's at this point where the line between antique and artwork starts to blur. Approaching the 9-figure mark, we are beginning to enter the highest echelon of collectability, fine art. For centuries, expensive artwork has served as an enduring symbol of high-class society. For those who are so disgustingly wealthy that the concept of dollars and cents has practically lost all meaning, fine art has often acted as the final frontier of what money can buy. Currently, Alberto Giacometti's Pointing Man is the world's most expensive statue, selling to a collector for $141 million. If you consider jewelry to be art, then the prices become even more staggering. The infamous Hope diamond necklace has been valued as high as $350 million and is generally considered to be the most expensive gem in the world. However, some sources claim that the title actually belongs to the Cullinan 1, the largest colorless diamond ever cut. Part of the British royal family's scepter, it has been valued as high as $400 million, but that's still not as much as the most expensive privately owned painting, Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi. In 2017, it sold to a collector for $450 million, and may quite possibly be the most expensive single item owned by any individual. Of course, the most expensive painting in the world is another Leonardo da Vinci work, the Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in human history, a work of art so valuable that it defies private ownership. The Mona Lisa is technically property of the nation of France and resides on permanent display at the Louvre. It has an insured value of over $800 million, equivalent to the GDP of Samoa. Beyond this point, we struggle to accurately appraise items. Anything more valuable starts to enter the realm of pricelessness. Certain items are deemed so anthropologically important that they transcend collectability and ownership. It's possible that ancient artifacts like the Rosetta Stone may be more valuable than the Mona Lisa, but we may never know if it really is. It's insightful to discover the point at which we stop pricing items. Based on what we know about how older objects continue to become significantly rarer and more expensive, then this 40,000-year-old flute made out of a mammoth tusk should intuitively be one of the most valuable items in the world. However, the mammoth flute has substantially less fanfare than a Stradivarius violin, despite the flute being 100 times older. This exception may reveal what exactly it is we find valuable about collecting rare items.
Welcome to the Batcave. This is the Guinness World Record Batman collection.
The act of collecting is far from rare. At least a third of Americans collect something. When I was a kid, I used to collect 1/64 scale die-cast NASCARs, and I can truly say that it was one of the most satisfying and rewarding hobbies I've ever participated in. But why exactly do so many of us find collecting so important? The psychology behind it is less understood, but our obsession with rarity may result from our brain's deep desire to seek out the extraordinary. The modern-day activity of collecting is largely a manifestation of foraging in prehistoric times, before our early ancestors discovering novel and unique forms of sustenance meant a better chance at survival. Thus, our brains adapted to release dopamine whenever we are presented with new extraordinary items. Obtaining food is no longer the satisfying challenge that it once was, and present-day collectors may be attempting to recreate the rush of discovering a new berry in the wilderness. The subconscious desire to recapture our foraging roots may be but a microcosm of a far greater desire to recapture our tribal roots. Today, we live in a very alienating society, a far cry from the tightly knit clans which our ancestors occupied. When we spend $400 million on a painting, or $9 million on a stamp, or $150,000 on a virtual gun, we are not just buying a rare item. In many ways, we are buying into the community that comes with owning a rare item. The act of foraging in prehistoric times was as much of a social event as it was a day-to-day task. It provided people with constant opportunities to demonstrate their usefulness towards their peers. Foraging allowed people to feel valued by the community around them. We now live in an era where the average person has arguably never felt less valued. For many, joining a niche subculture is the only way to rekindle the esteem and belonging. For collectors, it's a matter of finding a unified culture, one which simply represents their ideals and motivations. This may help justify why a 400-year-old violin is so much more desirable than a 40,000-year-old flute. When an item becomes too old, it loses the cultural relevance that makes it so compelling to us. People don't necessarily pay 9 figures on an original Da Vinci because it's centuries old or aesthetically pleasing. What they are truly paying for is a slice of what Da Vinci represents. They want to attach themselves to the prestige that Leonardo da Vinci's name carries. People admire Da Vinci, Michael Jordan, Superman. Maybe if we own an iconic piece of them, we can be admired too. While the impulse to collect once helped us gather survival resources, today it may be helping us gather social resources, which many are now finding more scarce than food, water, and shelter. For some, collecting rarities is the first step in connecting with others and engaging with an exclusive culture. The rest of us may consider it a waste of money, but for certain collectors, belonging to something meaningful is worth every penny. In addition to belonging, collecting may be attempting to account for another aspect many find sorely lacking from modern society: autonomy. With each passing year, the world around us gets more complex, more chaotic, and more unpredictable. You can't go a few moments without discovering some new threat that you didn't even realize it was possible to worry about. After a while, it all starts to become overwhelming, and most of us end up feeling more and more like riders on the storm. Collecting may be one of our most effective psychological mechanisms at reclaiming autonomy in the face of chaos and uncertainty. Cultivating order out of so many disparate objects can help anchor us to a more stable state of mind. In this sense, collecting can serve as a miracle, especially for those who experience trauma. It's no wonder.
doesn't have anyone in it, because the scene I'm talking about is 3 minutes long, has no spoken dialogue, and is almost entirely CGI. 27 minutes and 12 seconds into Spider-Man 3, there's a scene called The Birth of Sandman that is simply one of my favorite uses of special effects of all time. I don't have to do much to catch you up on the film to this point. Would you believe a man could have the powers of a spider? But the important thing is, there's this guy named Flint Marko. And Flint Marko is this kind of petty criminal who escapes prison, is on the run, but wouldn't you believe it, he's got a kid, which makes him sympathetic. He breaks in to see his kid, who is sick, which makes him even more sympathetic, according to Matt. His kid gives him a locket, but then he's kicked out by his mean ex-wife, and then Flint Marko falls into a big sand turbine, which gives him the power of sand, and he and Spider-Man fight a lot, and then ultimately Peter forgives him for a retconned murder of Uncle Ben, and then all is well, until he's dragged back into existence 16 years later to meet more Spider-Men. I describe all of this to you to say, it is a perfectly functional supervillain origin story, but one that doesn't have the wild energy of Defoe's Goblin or the faded dignity of Molina's Doc Ock. Marko/Sandman was reportedly one of the characters that Raimi really cared about when making Spider-Man 3. They say in the commentary that it was the first image the director had in mind before even starting on the script. He ultimately feels
Please put me out right this.
The plot to Spider-Man 3 was equally affected by studio execs pushing to include fan-favorite characters, and ultimately, I think the final product feels like a bunch of individual pieces of different movies, rather than something cohesive. But, existing amongst all those pieces is that 3-minute special effects scene, and finally, I can tell you why it's so wonderful. Actually, sorry, one more thing, I'll be showing lots of clips from it, but I can't show the whole thing in order here or include the music, because it'll get shot down by YouTube. The whole clip is on YouTube, though. I've linked it below, so maybe check that out before this section. So the scene in question starts with such a macro close-up shot that it's not immediately clear what we're looking at. Boulders, maybe scales or something. But the shot pulls back and back and back until it's clear that each boulder was an individual grain of sand, a surreal reminder that sand is actually just tiny rocks, and we watch the grains melt.
Here we go, phase 2 again. I don't have my res anymore, it just runs at a time. Stamina now. His attack. No. What?
With a process almost reminiscent of
I was so confident that wasn't gonna hit.
different sections building up and eroding away, but that primordial heap rises. Well, not a man. Not even really the silhouette of a man. But because our brains are so tuned to finding those person-shaped patterns, we can see shoulders and arms and a hollow skull. The shape collapses, and the pile is still for a moment before another form, undeniably sapient, rears up from the sand, almost golem-esque, formed from the earth. The shape takes a breath. It's the only recognizably human sound in the whole sequence. It pitches forward and seems like it may collapse into nothing once more, but instead the shape rises, symbol itself. It pulls arms out of the sand with long bits on the end, holds its head between them, quiet horror. And then, since unseen part of the pile, perhaps unearthed by the creature's shifting tides, a locket dropped quietly upright, arm's length away. It reaches for the locket, and this is when it becomes key, because now the pile is undeniably Flint Marco, fueled by the same motivations as his terrestrial self. He reaches for the locket, but it cuts through the sand, far more substantial than this amalgamation of a man. It's a small, pitiful moment. So the sand redoubles his efforts, stretching out his arm again, and in the same way that the grains cut geologic eras into the pile, his arm seems to go through millions of years of evolution in seconds, once amidst the long, delicate fingers. He plucks the locket out of the refuse. This action, this success, gives him the strength to move forward. He rises from the heap, still made of sand, but somehow now separate from it. The Sandman stumbles onward, echoes first class, but now the setback is only momentary, and he strides forward, each individual grain now invisible within the confines of Marco's almost human body. This is, I think, a perfect scene. It takes us through a complete plot arc, one that's simultaneously incredibly personal and almost a shorthand for the entire human experience, from unconscious unknowing to horrified sentience to determination and ultimately self-actualization. Is also, I must say, an absolute tour de force from composer Christopher Young. The soaring strings give the scene its emotional through-line. I don't think it's a perfect visual effect.
Oh. Damn. So unlucky. Oh, I should have just done that. I think I would have killed her if I just did that.
X-driven scene because the VFX are perfectly photorealistic. They're certainly not. Almost 2 decades since release, it's easy to see some of the cracks in the artifice, particularly with the slightly off-texturing of the individual grains and some of the movement of Marco's body. However, it speaks to the scene's direction that this just doesn't bother me. The effects are attempting to accurately depict sand, but that's a secondary goal to telling a story. I'm more than happy to let photorealism take a backseat for the sake of effective
I didn't
storytelling.
spend that much time on this, but
Actually, if you'll permit me a real interpretive leap, there's a way that the lack of photorealism actually helps the scene. This shot here of the locket sitting in sand is
I think Asian harder still.
the only real shot of the scene. That is, this is actual photography, not CG. It looks different from everything else in the sequence. The lighting a little crisper, the grains of sand a little less. And look, I know this is reaching, I know, but this locket is also the thing that grounds Marco in the real world. The object that transforms it into him, his tie back to humanity. And so for this thing to be the one real shot in a CG world, I'm not saying it's intentional, but it is thematically pretty elegant, right? In the modern era of blockbusters, it's hard to conceptualize the effort that goes into special effects. While still beyond the abilities of almost all of us, more classic effects like matte paintings, miniatures, and puppetry are at least understandable. They're physical objects made with tools we recognize. But I think one of the more unfortunate symptoms of effects simply being done on the computer is the landscape of VFX feels flattened out. Since CGI is inherently less tangible or removed from real life than something like miniatures, there's almost this sense that the computer is a magic box where everything is equally possible and equally unspecial. This isn't true, of course. Effects done on a computer still take an enormous amount of human effort, an effort that often goes unappreciated and unfairly compensated, as many special effects houses have said. I could tell you the true workload of this scene, a team of at least 30 people working 7 days a week for 6 months to accomplish these minutes. I could tell you that the technology to do this kind of thing apparently didn't exist when they began planning out the sequence, or that the VFX supervisor said it's the hardest shot he's ever done. The scene is massively technically impressive, every bit the equivalent in effort to the more practical techniques of classic Hollywood. But that alone isn't why I love it. Instead, it's the fact that this level of effort, likely the most labor-intensive effects of the film, went into a sequence that's so opposite what we expect in a movie like Spider-Man 3. In a script that I think suffers from a lack of cohesive authorial voice, this scene practically jumps off the screen. It is so beautifully specific, a single idea executed to the highest level. To spend so much money and so much time on a sequence with no fights or acrobatics, no recognizable actors or quippy dialogue, couldn't be the result of a note from studio executives. It's a sequence where I can see the painter's hand, or rather, the dozens of hands of a unified team of painters all working together towards a singular goal. Now, I doubt lack of authorial voice is a criticism that even the harshest detractors of the Matrix sequence would level at those films.
Taking off.
Sticking the landing. Of all the problems that folks might have with Reloaded and Revolutions, strange pacing, rubbery fight scenes, long monologues from vampires, I don't think any of these stem from the Wachowskis having too little creative control. Like with Spider-Man 3, I'm not really interested in interrogating whether these movies are quote-unquote good or not. I just direct you to this video from Sophie from Mars and Sarah Zedek, which does that better than I ever could. Instead, the part of the Matrix sequels I'm fascinated by is, like the Sandman sequence, just one of those scenes I've never been able to get out of my head. A perfect couple of VFX-driven seconds in an otherwise crowded film. It's even shorter than Sandman. Let's still run through it. So, much of the way through the Matrix Revolutions, Chosen 1 Neo and Chosen 2 Trinity have taken a ship and are on their way to the Machine City in an effort to negotiate with the machines and save Zion, the human resistance base. Just before this, in a fight with Bane, Neo has been blinded, so Trinity drives while Neo rides passenger and tries to vibe out where to go. Most of this ride is what I'd consider the least compelling genre of Matrix set pieces. That is, a human hovercraft in the real world trying to avoid big robots. These have been around since the first movie, and they've always just read as visual noise. There's very little sense of scale between the ship and its robo-squids. The physics are too different from our vehicles for me to be thrilled by. The murky CGI has aged more poorly than the series' other achievements in special effects. And at first, this road trip Neo and Trinity are taking seems to be the worst offender of that. Just kind of visual noise without anything for us as an audience. And then, I'm curious how many of you already know where this is going. I watched this movie recently, just for kicks, and then obviously many more times while writing the script, but even before that, with probably a decade between viewings, this scene is stuck in my brain with such clarity that it almost superseded everything else about it. To me, this wasn't the culmination of the Matrix trilogy or the movie with Neo's climactic confrontation with Smith. It was Trinity and Neo are flying towards this impassable barricade of the machine. They're facing this wall of explosions. And Trinity says, what do we do? And Neo would like fly up, and so they do. While they're ascending, the music is too building up and up and up, and then they break through.
God. That's far
This
enough.
scene is 15 seconds long. They break through.
Oh my god.
Shot of the ship in the sky, a shot of the light on their faces, a shot of the sky through the cockpit. Trinity says, it's my favorite scene. Much like Sandman, part of the reason this scene works is help the context for it. We don't need to understand why there's a machine city or what's going on with Smith or any of the other more confusing bits of the movie. You just need to get sky pretty. But unlike Sandman,
That's not great for that. Lucky. Okay then. What? Okay, I was on my. I'll help everything. Smash it. No stagger at all. Love it. Nope, what?
By the scarlet
No
rot.
stagger at all. I don't want that. Oh, it's Brendan. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay.
Hello, my name is Bradley. I have a rare taste in music, and therefore so entertaining. I asked for some interesting songs. Here are your guys' submissions. If you want me to here, you can always pay me to listen to it. I'm glad to mention my stream Saturday, Sunday, and CST.
Okay, what am I going?
There.
Still no progress. Talk already. I'll take it. Come on, just more progress. No way! That's so unlucky. There's like no bait block in my house. 90 attacks.
Yeah, I'm so bored of this song. It does all these flashy things. I don't buy it. I don't like it. I don't care for it. I'm bored. I don't like it. End of story. Not an interesting song. Sorry, Jack Stopper's not that great. Needle in the Hay by Elliott Smith. This is a song that definitely grew on me over time. I now see it as a quite stunning song. Elliott's lyrics are put together and are spoken so well. I get a sad feeling when I tune in. Makes sense. I think it's great, especially during the chorus.
I could have been a really good run. Oh, stop doing that. Oh god, no. I'm trying.
Thumbs up. It's just it's cool. The song is a wonderful banger. It plays off the theme of so much.
Forgot Apple. What? I stack. Oh, God. God, it's not the run, but I'll try to learn. My brain is sometimes so confusing. Like, God.
Blade of Melania.
Interesting song. That song is absolutely fantastic. Like I've heard the track before. That's an unbelievable track here. Well, that convinces me to listen to this album. I love the sample shop. It's magic. It's pure magic. The bassy segment, like the track actually.
I need food.
While also just being a combination of incredible samples. Like it feels like
Like a
it
beer
scratches
today.
this itch that I didn't even know was there. The
Or
same
turn
kind of
off.
itch that I got from a track like Shoo Shoo's Pumpkin Attack with Mommy and Daddy. Something that I will definitely check out. Marquee built by television song structure.
Stop dodging that.
Oh god.
Looking. Jeez, I'm falling apart. I thought I was doing a lot. Catch it. Okay. scared. Oh my god. That's what that was like. It looks so much what it should look like. What the fuck?
By the scarlet rot.
Alright, so I'm kind of reset now. Holy shit. Oh my god, you just like completely go to a circle and this instrument already like that. Just take it away.
Like I can't tell what's happening. Wow, that just does it.
The journey that it takes me on a very interesting track, something that's going to stick with me for a bit. Oh, the way it shimmers out there at the end too. Holy shit. Yeah, that song was a masterpiece.
Just rolling with these last.
Godsmack is how the wind feels on the face of Mike.
Story 2 by Clipping. I've heard this song. It's an amazing song. It's definitely one of the best Clipping songs for sure. However, it's not that interesting. You know what I'm saying? It'll play for you guys because it's definitely an interesting song.
Godsmack is how the wind feels on the face of Mike.
Oh my god. This guy's insane. Okay, go check this video out. Holy shit. I mean, look at that like-dislike ratio. Okay, it's dislike for the same. What the fuck? That was so good. What the hell? So that's interesting right there. A drum cover of a song that I never would imagine would need a drum cover, but somehow actually adds to the track. Incredible. Go check that out. This guy's Joe Thornby drums. That was fantastic. So Here We Are by Block Party is a song that's apparently about the way people feel when taking ecstasy. It's all just a good song. Alright.
Sounds like a dog.
The song is largely boring. The sound is fine, but it's not doing anything for me. All the Rage Back Home by Interpose about a rough relationship and conveys them perfectly. Not only is the song and lead guitar beautiful, but the fade out at the ending is the best part of the song. The drums getting louder show the rage as he's talking about. But Paul's voice gets weaker and softer, shows that he's giving him it's so well written that it can make you feel a breakup you've never actually gone through. Let's give it a shot. It sounds familiar, like I've heard this before.
Oh, yeah.
happen to this. Yeah! Yeah! So,
I'm
going to gym.
by the scarlet
Okay.
rot.
Yeah? No food. Huh? Food? No food. What about the food? Nigga, you got food here, blood. You got lunch. You got chicken. 7. Spaghetti. Oh. You got the protein cookies. 8 grams of fiber. 9 grams of protein, though. Nope. Fiber will keep you full, though. Remember that. Wrong.
And my name is Winston. I'm 17 years old. I am very similar to you. And my name is Winston. I'm 17 years old. I am very similar to you. And my name is Winston. I'm 17 years old. I am very similar to you. And my name is
Ultimately, I have to ask myself, what is the true meaning of being perfect? And the answer I came up with was... Ultimately, I have to ask myself, what is the true meaning of being perfect? And the answer I came up with was...
I've ever fucking seen. There's nothing I would ever change about this movie.
So you wouldn't change anything? Not even the fact that it has politics?
Where are we at? Is that him down there? Damn, this squad's rolling up. Don't you dare emote. Not on my watch. That's not gonna work on me, coward. I'm coming. Good fight. I won't even emote. I'll show you respect. Outplayed, idiot. Man looked up a build guide on YouTube. Not good enough.
I have to kiss them on the lips, no matter who it is. Whoever shows up, I have to kiss them on the lips, no matter who it is.
Oh, I need to break. Yeah, we'll get this boss.